Okay, we're live.
I pull up my notes here so that I don't go talking about my kids. All right, sorry about that. Good morning, everyone. Chair Sheldon, Vice Chair Labor, Ranking Member Sakowicz, and distinguished members of the House Committee on Environment. My name is Sean Moore. I'm testifying today on behalf of the U.S. Tire Manufacturers Association, or USTMA, in opposition to House Bill 204. USTMA is the national trade association representing the 11 major companies manufacturing tires in the US. More than 14,000 Vermont jobs are supported by tire manufacturing. The industry's direct economic impact in Vermont is more than $127 million a year, and tire manufacturing generates more than $24 million annually in state and local tax revenue for the Green Mountain State.
Say that one more time.
Sure.
Just from the jobs.
14,000 Vermont jobs.
Yep.
$127 million direct economic impact.
Okay.
And more than $24 million in state and local tax revenue.
Thank you.
So USTMA appreciates the opportunity to appear before you today to provide our views regarding HB 204. We commend Representative Taylor for his leadership and his interest in ensuring responsible end-of-life tire management. I'll refer to end-of-life tires primarily as ELTs. While we very much share this goal, it's USTMA's belief that the extended producer responsibility program envisioned by HB 204 will not address Vermont's ELT management goals. USTMA opposes EPR systems for managing ELTs because in practice, they focus on collection rather than building circular markets. They also introduce unneeded bureaucracy and costs to consumers, and they invariably bring unintended consequences. Today, in the Canadian province of Ontario, the unintended consequences of EPR regulation have included bounty hunting for tires, blackmail in credit trading, and a broken ELT market with growing stockpiles and safety hazards. A market-based approach focused on building market demand for ELT material would mean finding a home for the ELTs that are continuously generated and building a circular economy where waste becomes a valuable raw material. To address a few of the industry's specific concerns with HB 204, the bill does not bolster enforcement mechanisms or address illegal dumping. HB 204 does not develop beneficial and use markets for recycled tire rubber, which are the key to tire recycling. The stewardship organization organizations envisioned in HB 204 have no enforcement authority and no ability to stop illegal dumping or prosecute bad actors operating outside their hauler, processor, and/or storage licenses. The bill allows for multiple stewardship organizations with limited state enforcement power, meaning the manufacturers that are complying with the law would be the ones responsible for chasing down their competitors who are not participating in the stewardship plan. And given the fact that the definition of manufacturer is pretty complex in this bill, it can be very difficult to understand who precisely is responsible for which brands in Vermont, especially if they have no physical presence in the state or in the US. Multiple stewardship organizations therefore create cracks for unscrupulous brand owners and importers and a host of other parties to slip between. The bill offers retailers the option to participate as collection centers. Our experience in Connecticut has shown that nearly all retailers will opt for the status quo and elect not to participate in the program, making it enormously more complicated for the TSO to collect ELTs. Further, it's unclear how multiple stewardship organizations would be held accountable for proportionally cleaning up legacy tire piles that the state has allowed to accumulate over several years. The collection rates, both required and aspirational, prescribed in the bill are unrealistic without tire retailer participation. The easiest way for a consumer to dispose of their old tires is to simply leave them with the retailer when they buy new tires. This outlet accounts for approximately 90% of tires collected today. In Connecticut, where retailers have declined to participate, the stewardship organization is projected to collect just 10 to 20% of the tires sold in the state. Prohibition on tire-derived fuel is probably unenforceable. If a hauler or processor takes control of ELTs and transports them out of state, Vermont can no longer restrict what happens to those tires. The implementation timelines provided in the bill are highly unrealistic. Connecticut enacted a similar law to this in 2023. They became the nation's first state to do so. They came back in 2024 and made changes to that law. The original sponsor had a bill last year that would have made further changes to the law, but that failed. So the legislature will be considering yet another bill from the original sponsor to improve the program during this session as implementation begins concurrently. And that's because the first stewardship plan under that law was approved by DEEP in September 2025. And the law says you have 180 days to stand up the program after the plan's approved. So tires are still not being collected in Connecticut today. They'll begin being collected late next month. All the deadlines are prescribed in this bill are less than a year from now, and some could conceivably arrive less than 1 month after enactment. Under existing Vermont law, end-of-life tires are classified as solid waste, subject to all solid waste rules. It's illegal to landfill, stockpile, transport, or process ELTs in Vermont unless permitted to do so by the Department of Environmental Conservation. While statewide ELT volume isn't tracked holistically, disposal and collection typically occur in one of two ways. Most old tires are left with the retailer that installed the new tires. Retail tire vendors are required to accept and properly manage old tires, and they often do so while collecting a recycling disposal fee of about $4 to $5 per tire. Some residents take their tires to county solid waste district transfer stations, where fees typically range between $4 and $7 a tire. There is certainly room for improvement that would enable the current system to operate more efficiently here in Vermont. It would give DEC the resources to remediate orphan tire piles and encourage the growth of beneficial end-use markets for recycled tire rubber. USTMA has a long history of working collaboratively with a broad range of stakeholders to address challenges of this sort. USTMA would appreciate the opportunity. Actually, we're eager to engage with interested stakeholders in the state to build better mutual understanding of the challenges that currently exist to ELT management, and to identify together a path forward that can be supported by all stakeholders. As I mentioned a moment ago, sustainable markets to consume recycled tire rubber are key, and these markets are largely beyond the control of tire manufacturers. Old tires cannot be recycled back into new tires the way that post-consumer plastic can be recycled into plastic bottles, or post-consumer paper into bags and other products. Once rubber is vulcanized, it has a very limited value for producing the next batch of tires. Several USTMA members do use recovered carbon black in their tires, but this accounts for only a small percentage of a tire. I have a colleague who often likens using recycled tire rubber to incorporating a stale cake into your next cake batter. For this reason, USTMA supports state activities to develop circular and sustainable markets for recycled tire rubber, and we welcome opportunities to discuss ways to grow new and existing markets for ELTs in Vermont. To address market development for just a moment, the use of rubber modified asphalt is a mixture of ground tire rubber with asphalt, and it contributes to building roads and highways that are longer lasting, more resistant to thermal cracking, quieter, and safer. Each lane mile paved with a 2-inch overlay of rubber modified asphalt consumes between 1,500 and 2,000 recycled tires. Among New England states, MassDOT has perhaps the most extensive familiarity with using RMA, although it's also been used in Connecticut, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island. Rubber modified chip seal is particularly useful for producing superior rural roads. Incorporating purchasing preferences for cost-neutral products manufactured from recycled materials like ground tire rubber can boost markets for sign bases, weights, barriers, speed humps, and other infrastructure, safety, and construction products. Reporting on purchasing preferences leads to real-world improvements. In California, they have an extensive list of tire-derived products that qualify for the state's environmentally preferred purchasing requirements. Tire-derived aggregate has a broad array of potential uses. Applications such as flexible porous pavements, erosion control products, and lightweight fill can use ELT-derived materials for their engineering properties. The whole range of civil engineering and construction applications, including retaining wall backfill, water retention structures, septic system backfill, and the like, could be used in Vermont with proper support and market development. I think the reason we're here today, though, is because central to this issue, there are a few bad actors that are illegally dumping and stockpiling tires around the state. In USTMA's experience, illegal dumping can be reduced with enhancement and robust enforcement of the state's anti-dumping laws. This makes a big difference. In other rural jurisdictions, law enforcement has used hidden trail cameras to catch and prosecute bad actors. Some states have increased penalties and made dumping certain materials like tires a criminal violation rather than a civil infraction. Robust enforcement and prosecution of illicit ELT haulers is imperative. Unlicensed tire haulers are often where the tires leak out of the collection system and end up illegally dumped. Electronic manifest requirements provide greater accountability to ensure that ELTs are delivered to a licensed processor. These tools are well established and are effective in reducing illegal dumping as demonstrated by other states. Vermont requires financial assurance for processors, but not for haulers. USTMA supports financial assurance mechanisms for ELT haulers, which are also commonly used in other states. And we further support education and enforcement efforts that are necessary for regulations to be effective. We encourage DEC to benchmark proposed regulations with other states, which can be done through collaboration with the Scrap Tire Work Group, which is an unincorporated association of state scrap tire regulators and experts. USTMA would be glad to help facilitate that collaboration. I want you to know that these are not empty words. USTMA members are committed to environmental stewardship. This is why we joined together recently with the Tire Industry Association, tire retailers, Liberty Tire and other tire recyclers, and other stakeholders to launch the Tire Recycling Foundation to bring circularity for tires in the US to the next level. The foundation makes available research and analysis, information on innovative uses for tires such as rubber modified asphalt and pilot projects. The foundation is focused on the vision of ELTs as valuable raw materials rather than problematic waste to be disposed of. Our approach is therefore to shift the focus from how ELTs are collected to where they end up and to remove obstacles that are impeding the development of sustainable circular ELT markets. I'd also just like to take a minute to say the existing ELT management system in the US has been highly successful, and Vermont is not really an outlier. ELTs are one of the most reclaimed and recycled consumer products in the US. The percentage of tires going to economically viable and environmentally sound end-use markets increased from 11% in 1990 to 79% of the tires generated in 2023. And that 2023 figure is actually 8 percentage points higher than in 2021. Likewise, the number of tires in stockpiles has decreased nationally by over 95% from about 1 billion tires in 1990 to about 48 million today. Aside from automotive batteries, USTMA is not aware of any other consumer product that has achieved a landfill diversion rate higher than 75%. While the current ELT system is robust, we and our members share the goal that 100% of annually generated ELTs enter sustainable and circular end-use markets. That next step will require stakeholder collaboration, and we are eager to engage stakeholders to build a successful circular program in Vermont. USTMA respectfully encourages the committee to convene a broader stakeholder discussion with state and local solid waste officials, environmental advocates, community leaders, ELT haulers and processors and retailers, and tire manufacturers to identify an alternative path forward. In conclusion, EPR systems are government mandated programs that aim to achieve 100% of recycling of a target product. While the tire industry shares this 100% reclamation and recycling goal, we have been working with state partners for 35 years to develop uses for end-of-life tires. We believe that the current market system of industry and states working together to determine uses for ELTs is cheaper, faster, and more effective than a typical EPR program as a baseline. USTMA therefore opposes HB 204, and we sincerely appreciate your consideration of our position on this exceedingly important issue. We welcome the opportunity to engage in collaborative dialogue to improve ELT management in Vermont, but we respectfully urge the committee to issue an unfavorable report for HB 204. To answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, thank you for your testimony. It does sound like this is the beginning of a process rather than the end of one.
It's an ongoing process.
Ongoing process for sure. And think about the bill. We talked a lot about the circular economy and the role that we all play in making sure that things get reused, and I really appreciate that. You have a bunch of suggestions for how we can improve the process, but I noted that most of your improvements didn't seem to cost the tire industry significant amounts of money. It was a lot of dialogue and a lot of asking state agencies to do a better job of enforcement and such. But it seems like the and I appreciate that tire recycling and the problem with getting tires out of the environment has gotten a lot better over the years. But it does seem like it's sort of, we're at that level of diminishing returns perhaps, and we still have significant amounts of tires which aren't making their way, back to where they should go. It seems like at that point, it would make sense for the industry to be taking some responsibility, including maybe putting some real resources behind trying to figure out ways to get those last tires, where they ought to go. And I'm just wondering if the industry, the whole idea behind extended producer responsibility is that we would like producers to be ultimately responsible for the products that they create and put out into the world. And it seems like your testimony is not really embracing that kind of responsibility. So I'm wondering if there is, the possibility for a little more embracing of the responsibility of getting those last tires, out of our environment, and if it is the industry willing to put some real resources into making that happen in a way that would make it so that we don't have to legislate a solution.
Yes, and that's actually, I mentioned the Tire Recycling Foundation, which was launched at the very end of 2024. The purpose and goal for that organization is to be sharing or to conduct research on markets that are necessary to fill research gaps, and to do some pilot projects to help grow those markets. Because if we don't have markets, it doesn't matter who's collecting the tires, manufacturers or the government or someone else. They're just trash. They're not going to go anywhere. And that's why markets are so important. And so the Tire Industry Association, the Tire Recycling Foundation is aiming to put together like environmental product declarations for rubber modified asphalt. That's something that's been missing in this discussion, and a lot of states are now looking more at the life cycle costs of their infrastructure investments. Rubber modified asphalt lasts about 2 times as long as conventional hot mix and reduces maintenance needs. So those are things that aren't just markets to consume rubber, but are markets that also provide a benefit to the state. And so we've been working to help move that market along.
Representative Tycho. Yeah.
We received testimony that one of the state agencies said that rubber modified asphalt in this state, maybe because of the cold climate, made it was too brittle. Do you have any studies that show at what temperatures it's most effective and it will last as long as you just said?
Yes, and I can get those for you. I'm happy to provide those to the committee. The beginning of rubber modified asphalt started in Arizona, and it was primarily used for a long time as it's called the wet process, and it's used primarily in hot weather states. In 1990 or 1991, when the federal government passed the Highway Authorization Bill, ICE-T, it required states use a certain percentage of rubber modified asphalt. And this is 1990, 1991. The technology wasn't there. And a lot of those projects were a disaster, and that portion was repealed the next year. Rubber modified asphalt's come a long way in 35 years. And there's a new process that costs a lot less. It's the dry process, and it's easier there's lower barriers to entry for pavers to get into that market. We work very closely with the Innovative Pavements Materials Lab at University of Missouri. They do a lot of research on rubber modified asphalt, both on their own and for us. And they had done a study on the Illinois Tollway, and I'm forgetting which year it was. I think it was 2018, but the Tollway uses stone matrix rubber modified asphalt. And they had the polar vortex or whatever, where it was 30 below for however many days. It didn't change anything in the pavement. And it resists thermal cracking, so better than traditional asphalt. So Yes, I can get you those studies that demonstrate. that.
Thank you.
Representative.
Yeah, that was really helpful. I mean, that was good testimony and it had a lot of data in it. I'm just wondering, will we get a copy of that?
I'm happy to provide it.
That'd be great. You talk a lot about circular economy, which is a term I'm just kind of in the last, year or so beginning to hear. And I think simply it's saying just recycling everything, basically. Can you tell me how you would operationalize the circular economy concept to these tires?
Sure. So some of our members are using recovered carbon black, which is the thing that gives the tire its color, but actually gives it its strength. Or one of the materials that gives it its strength. It uses a lot of strength, but it's used as a filler to provide the durability for the tire. That, as I mentioned, is a small percentage of the tire. The very circular markets for recycled tire rubber are probably rubber modified asphalt would be the top one, because asphalt's one of the most recycled products on earth. It can be scraped up and recycled back into the next road. There are also larger, I mentioned, kind of barriers and sign bases and those sorts of things. Those are called molded and extruded products. And those are also recyclable back in. Sometimes it's harder to account for them though. Like, what do you do with your car floor mats that are probably made out of recycled tire rubber?
I'm kind of more interested in just who would be responsible. What would be if you do like a circular or some kind of visual? Like, what would it look like in terms of the circular economy?
I think it would be
From the manufacturer, to the final recycling.
the end user.
Yeah.
Sure. I think there's a shared responsibility across the system. We recognize that we have a role in this as well, and that's why we've been trying to help promote more markets. The issue with the growing number of tires that are being landfilled or being put on the ground in non-preferable ways is the fact that generation of scrap tires is primarily growing nationally at about 13%, and the markets are only growing at about 6%. So we're trying to focus on markets to catch up so that we don't end up back where we were in 1991. And there's been a lot of forces that are looking to actually increase that number of tires that we've been pushing back on. So
Thank you.
Representative North. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you for your testimony here today. And I totally understand the concept of circular economy, and that last quarter of the circuit where you take the recycled material and actually do something with it to bring it back into it, something new to bring it back around again. It may not be the original new product, but some other new product to go back around is critical. And so that last quarter is critical. So what do you see as the tire manufacturer's responsibility in completing that cycle? I mean, nationally, we have made manufacturers responsible to clean up their own messes in a lot of areas. And there are tire piles, obscene tire piles, all over the place that represent the lack of engagement by the manufacturers to clean up their own messes. So what do you see as the tire manufacturer's responsibility to help finish that last quarter, and then also to clean up the orphan tire piles that already exist?
I think helping to grow markets and that takes care of both issues. If you have markets that can consume those tire piles, those tires go into the markets, and that's why we've been promoting markets so heavily. We invest a lot of resources into the Tire Recycling Foundation. We host a national conference every other year. There'll be one in Denver in May that scrap tire regulators come to and exchange ideas. And that's where we've gotten the idea to invest more heavily in research on end of life tire markets, so that there aren't environmental questions about them, that we have the data to show that they're environmentally sound. they're collecting that. So that's where we've been trying to do it the most. And I think incorporating the small bit that can be recycled tires into.
Yeah, and that's very exciting. I was really happy to hear about the Tire Recycling Foundation and the work. So is that currently that Tire Recycling Foundation funded by the manufacturers? I mean,
It's, it's funded by a collaboration, manufacturers, retailers, different processors and haulers. It's an industry-led foundation, but it also has stakeholders there's a group called the Ray in Georgia, and they're a nonprofit that has a partnership with the Georgia Department of Transportation, and they have an 18-mile stretch of highway on I-85 from the Alabama border into Georgia. And they use that highway to test innovative and like future products for essentially the future of transportation. And rubber modified asphalt is used on the roads. They also have like photovoltaic material that's on the exit ramps and entrance ramps that powers the lights and everything like that. They test different types of reflective material. So they have a big interest in rubber modified asphalt as well. Georgia has a big problem with tire dumping. So they've been very involved and a great partner.
so I'm very thankful to hear that as a free market capitalist, I'm very happy to hear that the private industry is funding this and taking on, but I don't know that in general, we can just rely on the magnanimousness, the generosity of private industry to make sure that everything gets cleaned up. So given that this has already started, the Tire Recycling Foundation, what do you see would be the alternative to H2O4 that would promote or even require or demand that the Tire Recycling Foundation and the manufacturers be responsible for these tires and create those aftermarkets, as you say, to finish that last quarter of the circle? What do we need to put in place to say, you got to do it?
I would have to give more thought to that to provide a meaningful answer. So I'm happy to.
I think that's kind of what we're all here trying to do, because EPR seemed like the reasonable solution, but if the manufacturer is saying, no, we've already got something else going on, great. How do we make sure that happens and happens timely and is functional if it's not an EPR?
Yeah, and it's tricky because, EPR might work for things like paint or mattresses that didn't have a collection system that existed, but there's a collection system that's existed for 35 years. And we believe in continuous improvement, and our goal is 100% of collection of end-of-life tires. And we're on our way there. There's still work left to do. So
is it just a matter of timing? Let the technology get there
I think it would be helpful if the state DOT had a spec for rubber modified asphalt or for rubber modified chip seal. As I mentioned, chip seal is great in rural environments. It can be laid down very quickly, and it lasts a while, and
Fraction of the cost.
yeah,
and it doesn't trail off into the water streams and pollute the water with microplastics and all that?
not any more than not any more than regular asphalt is my understanding. I don't know anything about the microplastics, but I know that California has a mandate that I think it's 35% of their county roads be paved using rubber modified asphalt. And so they have a vested interest in doing this research as well. And they've looked at zinc and a chemical called 6-PPD and tried to determine whether or not rubber modified asphalt contributes more tire material runoff to the streams than conventional hot mix, and they found it does not.
So I think, sorry to consume so much time.
No, it's good questioning.
So I think what you're saying is that we, as a legislature, kind of demand our own Department of Transportation, since what you're saying is the tire manufacturers view rubber modified asphalt as the primary way to complete that last quarter of the circular economy. It's kind of demand our own Department of Transportation, at least a study and how we could best foster that market.
Precisely, yeah. I mean, and that's one of the things that doesn't come with EPR is like manufacturers don't have the ability to decide what material goes down on the roads. And so having a state, and we're not saying put a mandate for RMA. I mean, we're just saying open the door for RMA and make it a little bit easier for it to be used where local governments believe it's beneficial.
Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, it's free to go.
Just,
Yes.
sorry, real quickly, do you know if like 9 below or 11 below zero asphalt, rubber asphalt can be used in very cold temperatures?
It can be used on roads that get very cold.
Thank you.
First, picture, then Mike Aglavia, then Ellen.
Yeah, so thanks for your testimony. I just want to make sure I understand.
We got 4 to go.
Are you saying that 90% of the tires now are captured?
Between 90 and 95%.
Okay.
Are captured.
Okay. Do you know what the number of tires, the actual number of tires that aren't captured, that 10%?
Well, generally it's the back of the envelope calculation is 1 tire per person per year. So Vermont has roughly
300 million, so third, oh, okay,
Like-
from Vermont.
Yeah, and so if we were guesstimating in Vermont, it would be 5% of that number. 5 to 10%.
So 30,000 tires?
Yes.
So modified asphalt, what, do you know, what is the cost difference between laying down modified asphalt and the typical conventional paving that we do now? Is there cost savings there?
Over the life cycle cost, but on the front end, it is typically a little bit more expensive. And I want to clarify that it wouldn't be 30,000 tires that aren't being captured. It would be 30,000 tires that are being captured in a mechanism outside of the retail environment. So the retailers are capturing between 90 and 95% right now. Most of the other tires are then brought to solid waste transfer stations, or people turn them into swings or planters, that sort of thing. But
Okay.
it depends on the use, the design of the road. There are a lot of factors that go into that, and whether or not rubber modified asphalt is not necessarily the answer in every situation. There are some situations, some road types, I'm not a road engineer, but where you wouldn't use rubber modified asphalt. There are programs like in California, they actually provide their counties the cost differential from, like, if they get a bid for conventional hot mix and then they get a bid for rubber modified asphalt, and they pay the difference on the front end. So the counties don't incur any cost. And that money is raised, the money that comes from is raised on the sale of new tires. The life cycle cost, though, is far less than traditional asphalt. And unfortunately, most DOTs don't make their decisions based entirely on life cycle costs.
A lot of fossil fuel goes into conventional blacktop. Is there savings on that end with recycling?
Likely no, or I think if there is, it would likely be very minimal.
Okay.
When rubber is incorporated into asphalt, it's not the road doesn't balance or anything. It's not like the pour in place kids like playground surfaces that you might see for ADA accessibility, but it's a small amount of rubber that's added in, and it's encapsulated in the rubber binder. So it actually kind of like acts more as the glue, like holding the asphalt together, than it does the surface area. And I'll stop there.
Okay, last question. So these recycling asphalt facilities, what's the closest one to our location?
That I don't. Happy to look and find that for you.
Are there any in New England?
I believe there are, but I'm not 100%.
Yes, I would be interested in having that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well,
Excellent.
I think this one is probably gonna be a short answer for you, but I'm not sure. With respect to the tire manufacturer. And I know tires are manufactured for their durability and mileage rating and stuff like that. Is there any research that you know of to, while not losing those properties, make the tires more recyclable?
Yes, and there's also major efforts to make them more environmentally sustainable as well. So rice husks have been added into as a filler. There's a lot of tires now have some soybean oil in them. They're where our members are looking for a more sustainable source of domestic source of natural rubber. So natural rubber, the vast majority of it comes from Southeast Asia. There's a small percentage that comes from or is grown in Brazil, but I don't know that they export much at all. And our members have been looking at Russian dandelion and waiule, which is a shrub that's native to the Southwest that might be able to provide rubber. And if it's not, even if those are never a full replacement for rubber, reducing the amount of rubber that we're importing, shipping across seas would be important. So yes, we're trying to make them more sustainable and more recyclable.
Representative Chapin.
I guess I'd just love to point out and see if you have a response, but, a market-based solution works when markets can work. And in the recycling world, you see a lot of markets come and go. You see all of a sudden, the, extraction of the material is cheaper than the recycling of it. And, and then those changes, up and down, and it totally affects where manufacturers are buying their raw material. Can be a really volatile process. And you're pointing out that, we're discussing sort of the monetary ups and downs and challenges. And then you've got does the material actually end up adding microplastics to our water? And now we have to regulate that. So there's just a lot of questions that come up around that and other factors. And so I hear you saying, and I really support, maybe we don't need an EPR for everything. And if there's already a good collection system, which I do agree generally we have, what's the most efficient and effective system to address the problems? And the problem I don't hear you mentioning, and that the market-based solution doesn't address, is the health issues with tires stockpiled. Whether they're contributing to whether there's degradation and contributing chemicals or other things to our environment, or what we definitely know is the mosquito issue. That mosquito-borne diseases are increasing in our community rapidly, actually. And so I guess I just want to point out, and I'm wondering, can the industry expand its thinking to not just say, market-based solutions, just work on that. I mean, it's so important. And I'm so glad to hear some of that work and down south. And that's so important. And maybe there are some things we can do with our transportation agency to encourage those markets here locally. But I don't think we're going to feel comfortable without some kind of an issue to some kind of solution, like Representative North pointed out. That's not just state enforcing and building more capacity to enforce. How can there be collaboration around dealing with the waste tire piles such that we address the health and environmental issues of those piles? So I guess I just put that out there. And
sure. Yeah, I mean, it's true. Stockpiled tires are a human health threat and an environmental health threat. They're not only do they breed mosquitoes, but they are a fire hazard. They can catch on fire. It's why we've put so much effort into helping reduce the number of stockpiled tires on the ground. In 1990, it was 1 billion. Today, it's about 48 million. 30 million of those are on the ground in Colorado, and about 11 million are on the ground in Texas. So it's vast majority is in 2 locations, and we're working with folks to try to get those numbers down. I know Colorado just passed in 2025 or 2024 legislation to create a state-owned entity that is separate from the state regulator that would develop more markets in their state. They have a company there called Pre-Tread that makes construction barriers like Jersey walls out of rubber. Each of them has 75 tires in them. The state is really working on growing markets, and we want to be a part of that discussion because we don't want stockpile tires on the ground. It's already illegal to stockpile tires in Vermont. There are still some stockpile tires.
Members, we're gonna have to cut this off at 9:45, simply because we're running behind and Mr. Letty is on Zoom. So Chris Christie, you get the last question.
Thank you. It's a short one. So usually with an EPR program that we have with paint, batteries, other products that we expect consumers to return, there's not a cost for that. And you mentioned it earlier. If I buy new tires at a dealer or a service center, they take my own tires. No cost to me really, unless it's embedded in the price of the new. If I take it to the recycle, the solid waste district, you mentioned it, $3 to $7, whatever, and I have another one, the town I live in, that charges $10 a tire. That's not an incentive to return tires. That's a disincentive, and that's what's causing the waste side the road and legacy files, et cetera, because people don't want to pay. How could the manufacturers or the recycle reuse of the tire be responsible or provide some sort of incentive that people could bring them back at zero cost, or like with a redemption of a bottle, 5 cents? There has to be some value there for people to incentivize themselves to dispose of the tires correctly. How do you see any responsibility there? And it could be financial.
Yeah, so I would say with batteries or mattresses or other products like that, there is a cost. It's internalized. It's built into the product itself. You also don't have your old mattress with you, probably, if you're going to buy a new mattress. People don't walk around with their old batteries. The incentive to leave your tires at a retailer is that the convenience. It's inconvenient it's easier probably to pay a few bucks than take them, put them in the back of a car that your trunk won't hold 4 tires. So you're probably gonna have them in your back seat, and then take them to a solid waste transfer station. It's an unfortunate fact. There are 35 states that require a tire fee be charged at the point of sale. It's tricky, obviously, with the point of sale is also the point of disposal, but you charge the fee on the point of sale of the tire, so it's not negotiable, and you can't say, I'll take my tires with me and like walk away and not pay that. So that's one approach to it that's been successful, but I think the convenience is probably the biggest benefit, the biggest incentive.
I do have another question about legacy tires, but we'll forego that because it is approaching the witching hour.
Just so you know, John did let us know that he's available to wait.
And the next witness may be able to answer my question.
Okay.
Collecting his collection of tires.
Good. Thank you very much for your testimony.
So I appreciate your time.
Yeah, please submit that to the.
I will.
Yeah.
Members, we're going to move instead of. Want to go with 10 instead? Or 9:45?
He's available now.
He's available. Mr. Letty is available now. So let's stay live and we'll go to John Letty.
Great.
He's going to be talking about the same bill, 204.
Will we get a copy of this testimony? Can we get a copy of all everybody's testimony?
He said he would submit it.
Yeah.
No,
He just-
he would, but this gentleman.
John's, you can ask him.
Okay.
His testimony.
Okay, great, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Are you ready for me? Sorry.
Good morning, John. Chair Labor acting. I apologize for delaying your testimony.
That's
And
quite
then-
all right. You there was a good question and answer there. I was happy I was able to listen in, give me a little insight into what some of your thoughts are, and hopefully I can answer any questions you still currently have or any that I generate through my testimony. So I
Thank you.
appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all this morning, and hopefully it's helpful.
Can you please introduce yourself?
Yes. So my name is John Letty. I am the Executive Director of the Northwest Vermont Solid Waste Management District. We represent Franklin and Grand Isle counties, and we're made up of 19 member communities of those counties, and our population base is about 52,000. I also am the president of the Vermont Solid Waste District Managers Association. It's a professional group made up of the directors and managers of solid waste entities in Vermont. There's 14 members that are districts, associations, which is another subgroup of a consolidated town municipal group, and then some individual towns as well. The Solid Waste District Managers Association represents 95% of the state of Vermont. So we have discussed this tire legislation recently. I have feedback from the other solid waste district and association managers, so I can speak a little bit, at least based on our past conversations. I can speak to their feelings about waste tire management in Vermont. But I will start by describing waste tire management in the Northwest Solid Waste District. We have 4 drop-off points, municipal drop-off points, that are operated by the Solid Waste District. There are, within Franklin and Grand Isle counties, 1 other municipal run transfer station that collects waste tires. That is the Grand Isle transfer station. And then the private transfer station at the Casella Highgate transfer station, which collects tires. So those are the municipal drop-off points. Oh, sorry. The Northwest Solid Waste District, we collect waste tires at our Montgomery drop-off station, our Georgia drop-off station, the Alberg transfer station, and then the North Hero transfer station. And in addition to those municipal points of drop-off, as your last guest said, a good portion of waste tire management is done at the point of sale. So it's your local garage or tire retailer who are doing tire transfers, and they are collecting waste tires. To give you an idea of the number of tires that the Solid Waste District manages annually, last year, so our fiscal year 2025, which ended June 30th, we collected just under 4,000 tires for the year, or 91 tons of tires. And in addition to the tires that we collected at our drop-off locations directly from residents, we also have a program to manage tires that are picked up on the roadside. So this gets into illegal dumping, which is statewide one of the concerns that we deal with. So roadside dumping of tires is prevalent. And so through our Northwest Solid Waste District's tire assistance fund, which we collect then tires from our municipalities whose road departments may pick these tires up on the roadside. We collected 650 tires in fiscal year 2025 and 702 tires in fiscal year 2024. And those represent roadside dumping. In addition to those two, as your last guest said, the farm management of waste tires or used tires in the agricultural sector. So farms that accept tires to help bunker their grains for their herd is prevalent. There's a lot of tires that are headed towards farms. Recently, the mosquito is definitely mosquito-borne illness, and breeding in those is something that we are also concerned with. But as long as once they outlive their usefulness to the farms, that they're being responsibly managed, we see that as a win-win if they're helping the farmers find another use before their end of life. So the tires that we collect through the transfer station, they are managed by a company in northern Vermont called K&S Tires. K&S Tires picks up the tires from the solid waste district and then transfers them to a company called BDS. And they are located in Maine. Most of the tires that are managed in Vermont, whether it is through a tire retailer, a small garage, or a larger sort of regional scrap tire manager like K&S, they're all going to BDS tires. There are exceptions, I think, especially in the southern half of the state, but in the northern half of the state, the majority of tires are going to BDS. BDS then produces, they shred tires and produce both crumb rubber for use in other products, but also tire-derived fuel, which is burned for fuel in paper mills and other industrial applications. One concern that solid waste district managers have voiced is sort of the limited markets for used tires. The fact that BDS is managing a vast majority of the tires in the state, and that those tires are then being used largely, for tire-derived fuel. If we could certainly bolster the markets for the crumb rubber and for scrap tires, whether it be through asphalt that contains scrap tire, that would be a great benefit to the tire management system. Because only having one outlet, if that outlet shuts down, we would be in trouble for sure. And cost to residents is a factor. Having to pay a cost to dispose of those tires is why we see illegal dumping. The solid waste district, we charge $6 per tire for end-of-life management. I know the garages in the region charge a range from $3 to $9 for the end-of-life management. And then that's a decision point that somebody makes. And as was mentioned earlier, people often go to get their tires changed, hear that there's an added charge, decide, I can get rid of this cheaper, or I'm going to manage this myself. Then find out that the charge is relatively similar at, one of our drop-off points, and then is either frustrated that they have to pay it, and they do, or decide they're going to take it with them. And then we find a pile of 4 to 8 tires on the road, the back road, they're getting dropped off by the town road crew. So those are our major concerns, and I feel like a EPR program for tires would help to remove the cost burden from the end of life. It would also get the force of the industry behind developing further tire markets for scrap tires. the manufacturers are put in the position of managing them, then they will help develop markets for the management of used tires. So that's what I have in terms of prepared statements, but happy to answer questions.
Are there any questions from the members to the presenter? Representative Sakowitz.
Yeah, thank you for your testimony. Do we have any good sense of how many tires don't make it their way into being disposed of properly one way or the other on an annual basis? Do you have any sense of what that number might be?
Not from other entities, but like I said, our district, at least from our member towns that have used our program to help collect roadside dumping tires, we collect between 600 and 800 tires a year that are illegally dumped, and that's in Franklin and Grand Isle counties. I know there are some towns that they receive scrap tires on roadside and just deal with them themselves. They might be bringing them to farms. They might be directly bringing them to a regional tire manager like KNS, but they're not bringing them to us. So there are more annually that are dumped roadside than we're getting, but our numbers indicate between 600 and 800 for our part of the state.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yep.
Representative Oswald.
Do you notice any difference in quantity between snow tires and all-season tires, or do you look at that at all?
Yeah, I don't have any data on that. And I'm just thinking anecdotally. I think the time of year, like snow tires are prevalent in my mind because people just got snow tires put on. But I don't have data on which tire we see more frequently.
Thank you.
John, are you aware of any tire slicing machines being used by farmers in your area so that they cannot hold water?
I am aware. I don't have the details, but I have. I know that the Agency of Natural Resources and the Waste Prevention Division have informed districts that there is a tire slicing unit that's in use in the state. I think they're getting pretty good participation from farmers. We haven't seen many tires at all, or any that I can recall, at end of life that are coming from farmers that have been processed using this machine. But I have heard that it is in use in the region. Certainly some of the larger farms, I've noticed the tires having been sort of, prepared with that machine.
Thank you.
They're not whole tires on the bunker. So.
Representative.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, John, for your testimony. Just a quick question, where is BDS? Are they in Vermont?
No, they're located in Fairfield, Maine. So it's quite a distance. And that transportation, I think, adds to some of the cost that we see for sure.
Are there any other questions for John? Seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation, John.
Okay, thank you very much.
Our next witness, Chief Green, knows that we're running 5 minutes plan, so he's prepared for 10:15 if you want to invite Sean.
I don't know.
I don't.
We can see it. Are there additional questions about?
I did have one additional question for tire manufacturers association.
Okay, that'd be Sean Moore.
Yeah.
So you can just come here if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Just you're welcome to sit
You're
here
welcome.
if you don't mind introducing yourself.
Sure.
Again, my name is Sean Moore and I'm here today on behalf of the U.S. Tire Manufacturers Association.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sean, for being willing to take the hot seat again. Appreciate it. One more question. it seemed to me that the Tire Manufacturers Association, if you're representative of here, is already clearly a representative of the manufacturers. Could we as the state work with you as the association, you personally, but the Tire Manufacturers Association to aid in the cleanup of tire piles and kind of contract with for studies of asphalt? I mean, is your organization's capable of doing that kind of work that we could contract with?
It's not typical of something that we've done in the past.
Doesn't mean you couldn't.
Doesn't mean you couldn't. Anything is possible.
Yeah, all right, that was my question. Thank you.
Actually, while we have
Representative Seifert.
question as well. You mentioned the Tire Recycling Institute. And do you have a sense of what their budget is and how much that is funded by the tire manufacturers?
Off the top of my head, I know. I might be able to provide that. I mean, it's a 501(c)(3), so they would have a 990. So I could look at that as well.
It'd be great to know how much resources the industry is actually putting into making this, promoting those efforts.
Sure. So the USTMA, my organization, manufacturers worked with primarily the Tire Industry Association, which represents the retail side of the business, and distributors to stand that foundation up. And we worked closely with bringing in like Discount Tire and Liberty Tire and a few others to help stand that foundation up. But I don't know the budget off the top of my head.
Is it? Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be pushing.
He's in the cafeteria. We'll get him.
Yeah, why don't we do that? We'll move it to 10:15.
Well, would you like to have them come in now? Or should we?
Who needs a bio break?
Take a quick break.
Let's take a quick break. Go offline, please.
Yep, we'll take a 5-minute break.